Good. Hey, hi
Okay,
everyone.
perfect.
Nice to have you here. Wonderful.
Hello,
We have a
hello.
beautiful crowd. Gert, Tibor, everyone else. Hi. Hello, friends. Jacques,
So,
over to you. We have 45 minutes to
yes,
make it a great webinar.
great, great. So maybe I'll give everyone just 1 or 2 minutes just to get ready as we get started with this
Let's make it
webinar.
30 seconds, right?
Okay, 30 seconds. Perfect.
Very well. Maybe everyone can type into the chat box where you're dialing in from so you get your hands and your fingers warmed up and then ready for questions, whatever you wish to ask us in the next 45 minutes, why we speak, why we present, and talk about communication and AI. Yeah.
Yes, and we're
So,
really happy
Brussels.
to really have you here today. It's a really special session. We talk a lot on LinkedIn about AI and communications and public affairs, but this session is going to be more about how we can advance communications. So, seeing some examples of things we can do, maybe some prompts, maybe there's going to be some inspiring ideas, some insights that you can gain from the session, and then you can apply these things at work as well. So I see that most of you are from Brussels, or at least joining from Brussels. So really good to have you here today. So a little bit about us, Influence Builders. This is an adventure we've started a couple years ago now, and our goal is to really help people master the skills of tomorrow. And we think that AI is going to be one of these skills, along with critical thinking and judgment and all these things. But we think that AI is really going to change the way we work, but also change our mindset as to how we view our work and how we organize teams together. And this is part of our new webinar series. So the first one about communications today, and the next one in a couple of days as well, but more focused for public affairs consultants. So if you have any connections, any friends that are also public affairs consultants, then feel free to share the next webinar as well. So quick disclaimer here, we have 45 minutes, so let's keep everything short and sweet. The first one is that we're tool agnostic, so we don't really promote a tool over another. We're going to show you a bunch of tools today that you can use for communications, but we don't usually prefer a tool over another. We really try to show examples that use different tools. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat. We have the chats open, so if you have any burning questions that you've always thought about asking about AI, feel free to drop them. And then obviously the slides will be shared. We also have a recording of the session so that you can follow along, or at least follow today and then check everything and review everything later on. So in the chat, maybe you can already share what you use AI for. This is a great way for all of us to see what you're working on, how you're using AI. Is it mostly for writing?
Jacques,
Is it
I don't think
mostly
the
for...
slide deck is visible.
Oh,
Can you put the slide deck on?
oh, it's not visible? Okay, just 1 second. Just 1 second. Okay, can you see my screen now? Hello, hello? No,
Yeah,
so the
we can
screen
see
is
the
not
deck.
on. Oh, so I think some of you can see the screen, but not everyone, right? So just 1 second.
No, the deck is not visible yet.
Okay, good. Can you see the deck now?
Now it is. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, good. So it's just to see what
It's
you
coming
use
on.
AI for. So feel free to drop them in the chat. Any ideas on how you're using AI at the moment? So is it mostly for writing? Is it mostly for summarizing documents? Is it for doing anything else in communications? So it'd be great to have your thoughts in the chat, and we can address them a little bit later. So we've assessed that there's three main uses of AI in communications. And the first one is to collect information, so to do research, to do trends analysis, to see what's happening online, to see what the media is saying about a specific topic so that you can use that in your communications. The second one is to create, and this is the bulk of what we're doing. We're writing, we're preparing documents, we're summarizing meetings, we're doing a lot of creation in that space. And the third one that we think that is really interesting is to criticize. So to criticize our work, to find new ways of doing communications, to come up with new ideas, but also just to simply review our work and get much better ideas on how to improve it. And so the first use case we wanted to share today is regarding this collection, is to research how trends could affect your communications, right? And so here we're going to use Perplexity. Perplexity is a really good tool. It's kind of like a Google on steroids. It's a good tool where you can search information online and find things directly online. So I use Perplexity here, and I'm going to take the position of Digital Europe. I'm going to ask the tool to scan the most recognized news outlets and see how the latest LinkedIn algorithm change will affect, the way our audience consumes content, our expectations in terms of engagement, and the type of content we should produce. So I'm using AI to research how a specific trend is going to affect how we use LinkedIn. And at the end, I ask for a level of confidence for each of the recommendations that the AI will come up with.
And maybe just to jump in here, it's not only a sophisticated way of researching, but also a very different way, a much deeper way of finding information. So you look at our expectations, you say how the audience consumes content. So again, it's not information that necessarily exists in its pure form, the way you would do with a Google search. It's information that is generated based on an incredible number of sources, relevant sources that Perplexity finds. So that's why the mindset needs to also shift as to the kind of question you can ask and the kind of research you can make with a simple prompt, and not something like, okay, what year was Napoleon born? Okay, it has a specific answer. Or is there a survey out there that describes how people in the EU bubble or in Washington, D.C. consume content? There's probably some Gallup or Pew research or something out there. This is in basically pulling insights from a body of research. Back to you, Jacques.
Exactly. So it's all about researching information, but also having a clear idea of how you're going to use this information, how are you going to use this output. So here I've asked for the effect, I've asked for the changes that are going to affect our organization, but also some recommendations on the things we should be doing based on this research. So for example, it could be things about the topics we talk about. It could be the format of the things that we talk about. It could be simply, judging the success, what success looks like, based on these new algorithmic changes. And then the confidence level gives you an idea of, if we should really trust these AI answers, or if there's something that we should, focus on more in priority. So this was just an example to show the collection of data and then how you can apply your mindset to then assess if this data is really effective for your work. The second idea is to address content gaps on your websites. So sometime you might be having a website, you might be sharing a lot of data, a lot of content, but how do you assess if this website is really working for your objectives, right? And so the idea is to use AI to find content gaps, so things that are missing inside your content on your website. And so for this, we use a tool called Baneth, and it's a really good tool from Meta that allows you to analyze websites. So here I'm focusing on the European Heat Pump Association. And I'm asking through this prompt to analyze the website to produce 5 or 3 actionable insights. And then I'm asking the AI, and this goes back to the mindset we mentioned, to follow specific steps. So first, to audit the website's value proposition, tone, and topic covered. Then to compare with other websites in the same space. And then to explain how the media might be talking about something, and to identify the issues that we're not talking about in the specific websites. So here you're really not just asking, are we doing a good job? You're asking something a little bit more detailed, where you're looking at your value proposition, you're looking at other players in your space, and you're also asking about the media, because the media also can be a competing voice in your industry. And so what's really interesting with Baneth is that it allows you to ask a question, and then as it's coming up with an answer, it's actually going on the website and clicking on specific parts of the website to assess what you're potentially missing, right? So this is something you can really check live to make sure that the information is correct. And again, it's going to come back with a value proposition, your tone, the different topics you mentioned. It's going to do a competitive comparison with the other players that you identified. So it's usually better to identify the players before or ask for specific people that are in your space. And then it's going to identify media gaps. So the content or the topics that the media is talking about, but that you haven't really addressed on your website. So this is a great way for you to identify the things that you might be missing, right? So maybe there's a specific topic or a specific angle that you haven't really addressed on your website.
I'll jump in for a second just to really highlight that point that Jacques mentioned, where it really clicks through the site, which is radically different from the classic tools, even Perplexity, that might pick up certain links depending on the site structure and depending on whatever it finds in the back. But this one, it really simulates a human interaction with the website. And that's a very different way, not so much in the back channel or in the code side, but really it simulates a human interaction. And therefore, it's able to give you much deeper insights. And it can really find certain links which may not be properly wired in the way your website is built up. So it may not be findable to some of the AI tools. But with this one, as a human would, it kind of clicks around to the different segments, and therefore it's able to analyze it.
And another good question, or a few questions to ask yourself when you're doing these things, and it's always these questions that come back when you're using AI, is to say, how am I going to use this data? Or what am I actually going to ask this tool to do? So if I had a tool that can go on a website that could check things, what would I ask, right? And that's where you can go a little bit deeper in your prompt. Instead of saying, what are the topics that that we're missing? Going into, competitors, going into other people, what are they doing? And then seeing if you can also address these things on your website. And then it's going to come back with some actionable insights. It's always great to ask, what are the recommendations? What are your recommendations based on these insights, right? And so maybe the focus should be on, affordability, as the media has mentioned, or maybe you should address the real world performance gap about heat pumps, right? So it's understanding what is being said and how you can then correct these things on your website as well. Another great idea, or another great way to use AI, is to generate campaign ideas. So sometimes we find ourselves in communication really struggling with asking AI to be creative, to come up with new ideas, right? And so I'm going to share an example of how I would do it if I were to work for a specific organization. And I really like to come back to this example that I've used in agencies before. In communication, sometimes it's very difficult to sell ideas internally. And so we sometimes use this framework called mild, medium, and hot. So mild is an idea that it's easy to implement. It's a safe idea. The medium one is going to require a little bit of work to convince people internally, and the hot one is more difficult to get sign off, right? So
Edgy.
Here I'm going. Okay. It's an edgy idea. It's a little bit crazier, let's say. And so let's imagine you're an experienced creative campaign strategist at Johnson & Johnson, and you want to drive people to a specific policy hub that you've created. So knowing this, that your audience is skeptical about farmer narratives, and here it's really good to add a little bit more context as to what you're struggling with when you're using AI. Come up with 3 unconventional and effective campaign ideas, right? And here I'm asking for a table, and I'm asking for the 3 levels of hot sauce, right? So the mild, the medium, and the hot. And then close by naming one idea you'd prefer that we do, right? So here it's all about the language. It's all about the context that you provide. So the language here is unconventional and effective. There's so many different terms that you can use, like non-obvious, but in any case, it's trying to basically determine what is a good idea, what is a safe idea, and what is a kind of a dangerous idea that's difficult to implement, right?
Just to jump in here, I mean, talking about quirky and strange words to use, you might as well prompt the AI to say, well, you've just drank 2 cups of wine and you are in a great mood. Come up with creative ideas. And again, the AI as a non-embodied entity, at least for now, it's not going to drink that wine, but it will be able to simulate certain different ideas. Or you might as well say you've just done a yoga session and you are in a Zen mood, and come up with non-obvious yet great ideas for a campaign. And you can give it a try. You can play with these prompts, and just to see what it gives, it might give you better ideas. And ultimately, it's not about right or wrong. It's about coming up with something that appeals to your objective that you want to reach or you want to get to as a communications professional. So to the degree it gives you one great idea, it has done the job, and you can find different paths to that particular destination.
I agree. It's always great to think about the personality of the AI that's going to interact with you, right? So I was giving a training recently, and I came up with this idea of taking things from a perspective of a creative director who is from the 80s and who works in LA in a specific boutique shop in a specific creative sector, right? And if you take things from that perspective, you will get dramatically different results than just saying, I'm an EU policy, campaign strategist working on trade, for example, right? So it's all about the context and the personality traits that you bring to these questions. And so it came up with 3 ideas. So the mild, the medium, and the hot. And it favors also the medium one. So the one that's maybe a little bit more easy to get sign off on, right? So it mentioned a policy stress test tool where you can test specific ideas and policy options and see what are the trade-offs, right? So again, here we've asked a table because it's much easier to see the information. But if you need to actually sell this idea internally, you can also use AI to generate visuals, to generate a sample of what this might look like, right? And so we came up with a quick sample. So this is just to say that AI can really help you come up with an idea, come up with a visual for what this idea might look like. There's a lot of tools like Replit or Cursor or Claude Codes that can also help you actually design these ideas. So design apps, websites, or content hubs. So it's really good that you not just think about AI as a writing partner, but as a partner that can help you create ideas and help you visualize them.
Maybe just jumping for a second, this very visualization that you see on the screen, I mean, it's a simple image generation, as you can tell, but increasingly the AI tools like Replit and also Claude as a massive competitor now to ChatGPT, they create amazing what Claude calls artifacts. And many of you would be familiar with this, others may not. But basically, these are interactive, more than visualizations, interactive tools even that you can create. So be that a website wireframe, all the way to a doc or a tracker of the sort that you see on the screen. Interactive, clickable, and purpose-built. So exactly for the reasons you need. If you want to have a gym tracker, well, you can do that very easily with the tools with data inside. But more relevant to the EU field, you can do a policy tracker, if you will, for a specific area or a topic. Or with comms, you can say, okay, let's have a dashboard with all the necessary metrics that we are tracking in our trade association or in-house.
And also we have a list of tools if you're interested. So these are tools that are interesting for communications, but also public affairs. And it's available on our website, and we'll share a link in the chat. But these are just to give you an idea of all the different ways you could be using AI and all the different applications as well. Another big point in communications is to create messaging. So to have a better idea on what message is going to resonate with an audience, and also finding a way to visualize it with a message house. So here I'm taking the perspective of Insurance Europe, and I'm going to focus on 3 main priorities that they have for the next 5 years. And I'm also going to look at what the industry as a whole is really interested in terms of these priorities. And then I want the AI to make an assumption and to rate these topics in terms of relevance for this exercise, right? So again, it's going to come up with 3 topics that are really key for Insurance Europe, and then 3 topics that are really interesting from an industry point of view. And then it's ranked the best topics by relevance. So you can see them here. They're listed. And it's going to also give you the topics that the industry cares about, right? And so now, and this is something you can do with the second prompt. So it's always great to have, to think about, do I want to put everything in one prompt or several prompts? And we can show you what is the best option for this. But here I selected, or I've asked the AI to pick 3 of the most relevant topics and to build a message house. And in the message house, I've indicated exactly what I needed as well. And this is what it came up with, right? So again, AI is not just good at writing, it's also good at helping you visualize things. And a message house is really good because it can really encapsulate a lot of different ideas visually, right? In one slide, you can have all these different ideas, and it can show you the main priorities for Insurance Europe. So obviously, I don't work for Insurance Europe, so I'm not fully aware of if these topics are really key for them, but at least it gives you a sense of what is going on in the industry. And the question we get a lot is, can you actually train AI to stop agreeing with me, right? And I don't know what you think. So if you find yourself in this situation, please share your experience in the chat. But sometimes you find AI saying, yes, you're right, this is a great question. And then it just, agrees with everything you have to say. And I personally
Jacques,
have found...
Yes. Jacques, I got to say, this is an amazing idea. You are just so great at asking questions. And this is the right question to ask at this point. It's just wonderful.
Exactly. You sound like my AI sometimes, but I find a way. No, right now.
How do you know I'm not an avatar? Just
you could be
real looking, yeah.
Based on that question. But it's true that sometimes when you're asking a very specific question to AI is always going to try to please you, and that's I think inherent to every AI tool. It's always trying to validate what you're saying. So I found a way to minimize that as much as possible. So in Perplexity, in the settings, you can go into personalization, and then in the custom instructions, you can say, from now on, stop being agreeable and act like my brutally honest high-level advisor and mirror. Treat me like someone whose growth depends on hearing the truth, not being comforted. The point we're trying to make here is that whatever tool you use in the settings, you can apply custom instructions so that the AI tool remembers these instructions every time you ask a question. So you can say, I want short sentences. I want you to answer in this tone. I want you to call me this or that, whatever you want. So you can really be specific with what you're asking. But here you're trying to be specific with what you don't want. And I want someone, or at least I want an AI that can help me criticize some ideas, find my flaws, help me get to the truth. And when they're not really sure about something, they have to clearly state it, right? So these are the instructions you can ask to make sure that the AI tool is really not just agreeing with you. Going back to the point we meant with the criticizing our work and stress testing our work and making sure that our work is improved in communication, it's always great to stress test it, right? And here's an example. What I really like to do sometimes is to use the perspective of 3 people. So not having AI just criticize it once, or at least, have the AI force itself to criticize it 3 times in 3 different ways. So here, imagine that 3 reviewers are assessing the quality of your messaging and tell me exactly what they would criticize, what they would agree with, and what they would recommend focusing on instead. And the 3 reviewers are a critical European Parliament policymaker, a detail-oriented corporate risk manager, and a skeptical consumer protection expert. And this is for Business Europe, or Insurance Europe, sorry. So you can really have the AI have these 3 different personalities and then try to criticize what you just wrote to make sure that you're getting as much.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, there was a bit of lag in the audio, hence didn't want to interrupt you. Just wanted to say one important aspect here, which is these are excellent perspectives and very helpful to do, as Jacques will demonstrate in a second. One important caveat is that this very short description of the persona that you are asking for feedback, so you say critical European Parliament policymaker, is very helpful to the degree that it gives you a new perspective, a new angle. and that's fine. If your goal really is to go deeper, if you go further, meaning there's a huge difference whether that parliament policymaker is in the Greens or the left or the Socialist or the European People's Party or Patriots or any other political group, that's going to make a significant difference in the way the AI can impersonate it and the AI can give you a perspective. So it will go with kind of the top line, most likely perspective. And again, if that's your goal, just to give that angle, helpful. But if you want to really take it a notch further to have a very sophisticated description of who that angle is or that persona is, then you need a much more sophisticated description of that persona. The same thing with the consumer protection expert. That could be a lawyer, that could be an activist, that could be an ombudsman, that could be someone else. So those are, again, much more nuanced ways of describing that. But here, if it's good enough, it's good enough. But if you want to really go to that level because you need that sort of political, policy, or professional perspective, then you need to create more sophisticated descriptions of these angles and personas.
And this is what he came up with. So again, a table is really a great way to visualize information. So we've done what they would criticize, what they would agree on, and what they would recommend instead, right? From the 3 different perspectives. So this is a great way for you to just have a sense of if your text or if your messaging is going in the right direction, how would people react to these things, and what you need to address.
And a few words on these points. So this is Rhetora, a tool that I have launched and we are very actively developing. What you see here is you can pick actual personas, which we have created in great detail. And these are groups, cohorts, like Gen Z, or free market conservatives or other perspectives, and you can overlay it with different communication frameworks. And then you can feed in any message, be that a press release or a social media post or any other, and then you can test and anticipate what the reactions will be. And not only the reactions, but very active recommendations. So partly what they like, and they give a score value of what the message strengths and weaknesses are. But then there's another part that says what to improve. So how can you make the message resonate better with that particular persona or groups? Or how would you need to frame or present your message that Gen Z audiences would like it? And then you can chat with the personas and the groups and ask them any questions of what did you like, you did not like, or give me ideas of what would you improve or in that particular message. So you're welcome to try out, to sign up to Rhetora. And we are adding enormous amount of new features and use cases. And this is even a version that was some weeks ago. And the new one is coming very soon, but you can already play and try and use it for your particular messaging.
Nice. And on to creating social media content. And this is something that we all have to face as communication experts. We have to create content for LinkedIn, for all these different platforms. And so how do we use this in the best way possible? And I will share an extreme example. So obviously you don't have to follow this, and it's going a little bit further out, but this can give you an idea on how you could be using AI to simply write content, right? So the idea here is in 3 steps: gathering information, key patterns, and then create. So for this example, I wanted to take the perspective of Eurocommerce, and I want to create content regarding their recent event, right? And so instead of just going on their website, getting some, specific documents, publications, I decided to go on their their YouTube channel and review their videos and about the event, and then try to create content around that more specifically, right? So I basically took the links to Notebook LM. It's a free tool by Google. And it's a free tool that is really specialized in summarizing large amounts of data, right? And part of their new feature is to help you include YouTube links. So you can simply include the links in, and it's going to review the videos, it's going to review and transcribe all the videos. And based on that, this is going to be your base for creating new content, right? So on the left-hand side, you can upload the videos. And then in the middle here, you can ask questions about these specific videos. So it's going to summarize everything, and then you can actually ask specific questions about them. And then on the right-hand side, you have the studio. And the studio allows you to then use this content to create slide decks, to create even audio podcasts. You can create reports, flashcards, mind maps. There's a lot of different things you can do there to then potentially use on social media. There's also a infographic feature, which is really interesting if you want to test this idea as well.
And maybe just to jump in, it's not only the default way that it generates those, because that can be sometimes felt as very AI generated, but you can click, there's a little pencil button where you can customize with instructions. So you can say, I want an infographic that matches our brand colors, and then you give the hash code of the colors that you're using, or to say, we like hand-drawn art style, and then it's going to create that in that particular style. So it feels much more on brand. And now with Cloud Design, of course, these things are happening elsewhere, and its integration into Canva, but Notebook LM is still a wonderful tool. And not only that, but what Jacques is going to present now is how you can work with the information. There's multiple information sources like the videos, how you can pull certain ideas and insights from those and not just generate something new, but to work with the information body.
Exactly. And so on the left-hand side, what you can see is the YouTube videos. You can also see some additional documents that I've put in just to get more context. And then on the right-hand side, it actually created an industry report. So it's a report based on that specific event. As I'm not from Eurocommerce, and it seems like Mattia is from Eurocommerce on the call, then I needed as much information I could find on the specific event to create potential content. Then what I did is I created a space. So I personally use Perplexity, and this might have a different name depending on the tool you use. On ChatGPT is called Project, I think. So you can create a space, or in Claude too, yeah. I created a space which is sort of a sandbox where I can have more custom instructions, more specific documents. It's kind of like a project where I can have a more specialized AI to help me create these posts. And in the specific space, so spaces and projects, I think, are mostly in paid versions. So in the specific space, what I've done is I've created instructions. So saying that, you are a LinkedIn copywriter for Eurocommerce, giving a little bit more context on what we're trying to do here. I shared some files, including the report that I've just downloaded from Notebook LM. So the report gives me a lot more information on the event, as well as some links if I want to, so links to the website. And then I simply ask a question. You're an experienced LinkedIn copywriter for Eurocommerce, just to reaffirm the position of the AI. Write 3 short LinkedIn posts based on the key themes from the Eurocommerce event, and then use the space instructions and supporting files to create these posts. Obviously, here there's a lot more I could have added. Examples of previous posts, which I think I have actually. There's a lot of things about stylistic choices, about the different tone you might have, the structure of a post. What do you want the audience to feel? Who's the audience? There's a lot of different things you can add here. But I really kept things very basic, and it came up with 3 specific posts that are each focusing on specific topics from the events. So the first one being on AI and innovation, the second one on consumer polarization and market recovery, and the third one on sustainability. So this is just a simple example to say that with 2 tools, one that's free and one that's technically paid, you can gather a lot of information, define sort of the patterns of what this event is all about, and you can also define your own patterns on how you usually write LinkedIn posts. And then you can have this AI create a new post that then you can assess, you can review, and then refine as you're going further. So this is a much more advanced way of developing content than simply saying, write this post about this topic.
What I wanted to jump in with is you can then apply many additional filters or layers or improvements, because when you look at this, it's pretty good and seems to be on message, but it feels and reads to AI, like not this but that. It's quite typical of AI writing, and then you can simply add instructions to say, well, make it sound much more human, or watch out for AI sounding formulations and word choices or other stylistic element. Make sure to replace that or remove those and make it sound with a better flow. So you can add those additional tasks or additional instructions, so it will read better. And like Jacques said, you can feed in previous posts or items that seem to have worked well in the past, and to say apply that sort of style or voice to this particular piece, and make sure that it follows those patterns. And of course, you can just download that Wikipedia page, feed it in as a PDF, and then instruct the AI to say, watch out for these, and by no means should you apply any of that.
Yes, we shared a link to the Wikipedia page that shows the signs of when AI is being used in writing. So you can upload this document, as Andras said, and say, do not follow these rules so that we don't sound AI at all.
But usually the best way is providing a sample. So you can, or multiple samples, 3-4 samples of good writing that you're happy with or your bosses are happy with. You say, okay, draw certain stylistic insights from these samples in an abstract way, and then apply those for this particular new piece that you need to create, or the one that I have generated as a draft.
Another question worth addressing here is, what can you do when answers seem wrong? Well, you can simply criticize your AI, or at least challenge it to give you the right answers. So explain in detail how you came up with these results and share your main blind spots. Obviously, then it's up to you to assess if you trust the systems 100%. You should never actually trust them 100%, but at least it can give you some insights as to why it made specific choices, right? So it's going to explain how the posts that we just wrote were built. And then also the blind spots, right? It selected themes that I didn't select, and it ignored audience targeting. So these are maybe the things that you need to take care of. Maybe you should define the themes, and maybe you should define a little bit more about what audiences might be expecting from your LinkedIn posts before you even ask AI to do that. And the last point we wanted to make before wrapping things up here is to get insights about your social media content. And for this, I'm using 2 tools. So Authored Up, which is a great tool to work on LinkedIn, so to write posts and schedule them. And then Gemini, just to give another tool a try here. So the idea here is to analyze my LinkedIn posts, but not just describe the data, find the underlying patterns, what's driving performance, what are the weak assumptions that I have, and what are the missed opportunities.
Jacques, I just jump in for a second because some of our participants or viewers would be running on Microsoft ecosystems. And that is just to say, these are not tool specific, in the sense that you can definitely use Authored Up, connect your organization's LinkedIn to it. Again, the usual caveats apply to make sure that the privacy and other settings are properly set up. But you can export data with Authored Up, and you can feed that into Copilot, and you can feed it into whatever approved tool you have inside your organization. And some might do a better job than others. And again, for these kind of things, Copilot is pretty good. So no concerns there. It's more the underlying raw data that you pull, the statistics and other insights that you pull with the help of a tool like Authored Up, and then you can export it as an Excel sheet or whatever form it uses.
Yes, and for this example, maybe I should have mentioned that I did export my posts from last year all into, or at least from Authored Up, to then upload them into Gemini. And then it's going to give you what drive performance, so personal and story-driven posts, at least for me, documents, tagging people in my posts, the habits that are capping me. So obviously remember that my AI is very critical, so sometimes it uses very direct language. You have effectively abandoned the document carousel format, so maybe that's something I should look into. So it's going to give you a set of insights on the things that are performing well, what's limiting you, and also the missed opportunities, right? So this is really good. And it's up to you to then direct the tool to ask specifically what you want. And then at the bottom here, it says the one thing worth fixing first, right? So my content works when I show who I am and what I'm actually thinking about, right? So it's something to remember about my content. But this is really something that's really impactful because maybe there's a few ideas that I already know about my content, but AI is going to actually give me something that I've never thought about, right? About my content, and maybe something I should test moving forward.
Jacques, you're in trouble. If you go back for a second, you say
Yep.
83% of your posts end identically. Now, I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, but maybe you are totally on brand instead of varying
Yes.
it. But that's you see, that kind of insight is helpful. And if it converts well, because you get new clients, you get new workshop requests and other business goals, then it works really good. But it is just good to feed in the data, and it detects patterns better than any human would in most cases.
Yeah, I think a lot of social media reporting can be done by AI, right? Especially when it comes to numbers, when it comes to a large amount of data. If you have a list of posts plus, all the engagement, you can really assess, and I think numbers are really key here, if 83% is really, really something that I need to potentially shift, right? So it's thinking about how to use AI to come up with these insights so that you can apply some recommendations down the line. So that's it for today. So the takeaways are really clear. Whenever you're using AI in communications, it's always good to provide more context, more data, more details about what you're trying to do, maybe even the problems you're trying to solve. Try to challenge AI results and say, why are you giving me this result? What's your underlying bias for this? And also try to criticize your own assumptions sometimes. We also find that asking deeper questions will always lead to more precise answers. Use AI as a thinking partner. It's there to help you think, not necessarily just help you write. You can also, instead of giving instructions, think about stating your problem and your goals, and have AI be, again, a thinking partner to help you solve this problem. And then again, keep experimenting with tools and setups and frameworks and prompts as you go.
Just jumping in for the bottom left one before we move to this very last one, to stating your problem or goals. You could say, I want to increase my visibility towards members of the parliament, or I want to give more prominence to this particular message towards policymakers in Brussels, in London, in Singapore. So you define what your ultimate goal is, and then you can instruct AI to say, help me work this problem backwards, or tell me the component items or the component steps that I could consider to get to that particular goal. So you don't necessarily need to have the very specific instruction and all the knowledge in mind, but it's enough to know what you don't know, or enough to know to have an intention, a certain direction. And then AI is going to help you find the path towards it. So this is an iterative process where many people use AI to give instructions, basically outsourcing a certain particular task that they just want executed. And instead, what we're encouraging you to do is take that step back and say, okay, let's explore this particular topic with the help of AI, hence the AI as a thinking partner item as well.
Nice. And we're also happy to organize, to schedule, to work with you on a workshop if you're interested for your team. And during these workshops, what we do is we usually explore new ways of using AI for your specific team. So we come in with some ideas, some prompts, some applications that you can apply to your work. And obviously, everything is customized to what you're facing as an organization. And we show you how to get much better answers from these AI tools and how to save time with more repetitive tasks. And we try to do that as much as we can with many different teams across Europe and across even the US most recently. But again, our goal is to really help you educate yourself on where the space is going, how to use AI at work. And so we have a website with a lot of resources. We're also active on Substack and LinkedIn. So if you're happy with the free content for now, that's good. But if you are trying to get to the next level with your team, then we really encourage you to jump into a workshop as well.
So with that, maybe we can wait a second or two. I saw some people typing. If there's any other question, we're happy to answer in the remaining 30 seconds or 60. But that's something we can follow up on. And as always, feel free to reach out, and we're happy to point you to the right resource or the right direction. And obviously, there's enormous amount of directions you can go with when it comes to AI. And what we're encouraging you to do is find ways that it can help with the quality of your work, not just with efficiency. And I see here a question coming in for impact of AI use on the environment, and it's significant and it's increasing. And these are extremely power-hungry structures. Unfortunately, it won't be on one or the other person's individual level that it's resolved. Now that it's built into every single software tool on the planet, including Google searches, over 1 billion Google searches now also generate AI responses. So that's probably a very macro level policy and energy policy issue. So we will not discuss that big societal impact, however important that is, when it comes to our daily work and strategic work. That's where we encourage you to explore the different use cases. So with that, if you like this webinar, then we will, we send you the recording, but you are very welcome to share it with colleagues, with teams, with others who could benefit from the content. And we will also share the slides so you can take the prompts and the different ideas with you. So with that, again, a big shout out and a big thanks to Sonia for her support, for her help, and on behalf of both of us.
Thank you everyone for joining, and let's continue the conversation on LinkedIn and on the website. If you have any questions as well, we're happy to answer them as we move forward. But thank you for joining this session, and let's continue using AI in our work.
All right. Thanks so much.